And we are live. All right, Tam, amazing to meet you. Happy to get to know you and see where this conversation goes. I love to start off with, even before you introduce yourself professionally and all that, we'll get into all of that. As a human, this week, this month, what is it like to be you?
Gosh, I would say creative and transformative would be two good
Mm,
words to use. Yeah. Yeah, it's been
okay,
a very weird upside down year with a lot of shifts, a lot of changes, a lot of things being taken away that were no longer necessary. And
okay,
I'm kind of just rolling myself through the process. And the creative side is um, me getting myself back out there in the spiritual based work that I do.
hmm
So recreating my books, recreating my platforms, recreating myself. Yeah, so creative and transformative, I think would be two goods to use.
okay. Why do you say recreating?
So last year, June, I went through a really bad burnout with my work.
Mm,
And I was like, I've been doing my work for about 15 years now. I haven't
wow,
taken a break, I haven't paused.
wow.
And everything in me, my body, my energy levels, they were just like, you need to stop. And I did. I took that break, and it was a break that I really needed. It was for me to take that step back and see how can I redo my work, because my work's always worked for me. And
Yeah,
then I moved to the southeast of America, and the southeast spiritual based work is pretty frowned upon. I don't
right.
quite fit in. And I was like, I need to reinvent myself. I need to reinvent the way that I work. I read tarot for many years as a professional reader. I then added energy work into that. And then I then retired. And I loved the fact that I'd retired. I was burnt out from reading for other people. And I shifted towards a more educational role where I'd rather teach people how to use these tools for themselves for transformation and growth. And where I was living, that wasn't working. So for the first time in 15 years, what I did didn't work. So I'm like, okay, I need to make some changes. So 3 years of banging my head against the wall and exhausting myself, I eventually hit that burnout stage. And I was like, no, you need to take a break and you need to refigure this out. You need to recreate who you are.
Mm,
So there was stagnance in the work that I'd done. I've been doing you do the same thing the same way over and over. You reach that stagnance point. So at some point you need to stop and say like, hey, what's working? What's not working? Is this what I want for my life? Am I still on the path that I want to be on? And that's where the reinventing came in. So it's been a good year and a bit of reinventing myself.
okay, okay. So you said you've done this for 15 years and then you moved to the south of the US. Did you
Yeah,
move? I
yeah.
think
I'm
I saw I think I saw that you were originally from South Africa.
That's right. Yeah, born and raised
Okay.
South Africa. Yeah,
So
now living in South Carolina.
is that where you did all of this work?
Most of my work, yeah, most of my work was back in South Africa, and then when I moved to Southeast Asia, my work just boomed in Southeast Asia. Probably the busiest I've ever been in my years of doing my work. I loved it, and then met my now husband. Went back to South Africa, got married, started my immigration process. And I was like, well, my work's thrived in my country. It's thrived in Southeast Asia. I'm sure it'll thrive here. And the universe is like, no, no more thriving for you. You've got to make some changes if you want to thrive. So I'm like, okay, let's go back to the drawing board 15 years into doing the work that I've done. But you've got to do that sometimes. Your change is good. Change is really good.
Yeah. Okay. So where are you at now?
So where I'm at now, I'm pretty much back to doing a soft relaunch of going into self-development coaching. So I've always worked within the holistic field. Tarot's always been one of my main tools that I've worked with. As I said, I was a tarot reader for many years. And the way that I read has shifted and changed over the years. Back when I was a baby reader, I did the fortune telling style card reading, and then I knew better and I learned better, and I moved towards a more therapeutic perspective of working with the cards. And as I worked with so many different people and so many different cultures, there was this constant repetition of me giving people the answers. And as much as that's all good and well, and I've got the capacity to do that, I found that when people were getting the answers for themselves, it was so much more empowering for them. So I was like, let me rather teach people how to do this for themselves because the impact is so much more beneficial for that person. You know, you can give a person an answer and they'll have some information, but when they get the answer for themselves, now they've got wisdom. You know, they're two
Yeah.
different things. So that was one of the big reasons why I retired from being a tarot reader is I was tired of giving people the answers. I'm like, no, you got to figure it out for yourself. I can show you how to do that, but you do the work. I'll give you the tools to do that. And that's why I moved to more of an educational perspective. But teaching spiritual tools online, people prefer that one-on-one in-person interaction. So my business model wasn't quite working. So this last year I've been shifting, how can I change that business model? How can I take all of these tools that I've been using for myself personally and that I know that they work for other people and still present it in a way that's going to be beneficial? And that's where I've now moved into self-development coaching, working with these tools specifically. I mean, I've got some great tools in my toolbox. They've gotten me through some of the most intense moments in my life. You know, the loss of my brother, moving to other countries. You know, there's life's hard, life is challenging, and you've got to have tools in your toolbox. Otherwise, you're going to struggle your way through it. And the tools that I've got, they work. They really do.
Mm, okay. So you're shifting into personal development coaching. Kind of, is it more general, or are you going to be more specific on like a specific area of life?
So for me, it's I'm coming very much from a spiritual perspective because the tools that I work with are very spiritual based. So you're looking at Buddhist philosophy. I use a lot of yoga and yoga philosophy. I work with the tarot. I work with shamanism and shamanistic practices. So the work that I come from, the tools that I use are very spiritual. And I find that, you know, having studied quite a bit of psychology myself, I've done a couple of short courses in psychology. I've worked with my own therapist, and as much as therapy is a beneficial thing to have, and 100% work with a therapist, but the downside to that is that they only touch on the external layers of a person and they miss this whole spiritual aspect to who we actually are, the authentic self. So I've, in a sense, filled the gap with bringing in that traditional therapy, but I'm bringing in that spiritual element. So I'm working on all the different levels, which I think a lot of people nowadays, that's what they're looking for. You know, they're want to understand, you know, meaning of life. They want to understand purpose. They want to understand reasons behind the experiences that they have. You know, and sometimes Western psychology doesn't give us those answers. Sometimes they don't even give us tools to work through to find those answers. But when we're starting to delve into Buddhist philosophy and yoga philosophy and all these beautiful ancient tools, they give us those answers. They give us the tools to find those answers for ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. I totally agree that the Western psychology and Western therapy practices and things like that, like, definitely are not quite at the level that they should be. And this is
Mm,
coming, like, I've been helping people with social anxiety for about 4.5, almost 5 years now professionally. And I struggled with social anxiety long before that. And I kind of went out and did my thing and started learning these tools for myself. I can get more into that later. But I can definitely, I interact with many people who are like, I've been in 5 years in therapy, 10 years in therapy, 15 years in therapy, 2 years in therapy. I've made no progress. Like, okay, maybe I understand a little bit more about like the self-awareness,
mm-hmm.
but that's it. Like, no tools, no progress, no changing habits, no changing beliefs, no extra awareness, no more connection to other people, no more connection to the world or to something greater. So yeah, it's definitely lacking. It helps for some people, and there are some amazing therapists out there, right? But in
Absolutely.
general, as a whole, the system definitely, I think, needs to evolve similar to just the general education system. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, the Western psychology has a long way to go, and they're just missing this one little piece. Like, just slot that little piece into Western psychology, and you'll all be wonderful at what you do. Let's do that.
yeah,
Absolutely, I agree with you. Mm.
yeah. So yeah, I agree that there's a lot of space for evolution and for people like you to step in and filling the gaps. And I think it's very needed. I think it's very needed in today's day and age where people are freaking out. You know, There's a lot of problems happening, and it's I think there's always been problems, and I do genuinely believe that we live in the best times humanity has ever seen, humanity has ever had. But it doesn't seem that way. It doesn't feel that way because we have access to all of the news all the time, and it's they're literally making money off of us being freaked out about the world because our brain loves the negative bias and the burn stuff is burning down stuff, right? And
That's
so yeah, it can be very easy to just slip into, oh my god, this is the because I interact with a lot of people again on the mental health side, and a lot
mm,
of them have this perspective and belief that like this is the worst time humanity has ever seen, and like I'm mind blown because like that's so far away from reality, because in the past it's been much worse.
oh
Much
yeah.
worse,
Oh, look at the
right?
Dark Ages.
Right, it's been much worse. But yeah, so like yeah, I think it's very important to talk about it and work with people this way and spread it out there. I'm curious, like, how was the completely beginnings? You said you're kind of restarting and you did it for 15 years. How did you even get into any of this in the first place?
I was a very curious teenager. I grew up in a very open minded house, thankfully. I'm grateful to my parents. I mean, I could put any book on my bookshelf and they were like, as long as you're safe and you're happy with what you're doing, we'll support you. Like, we'll take you
Okay.
to the bookstore and buy you the books you want to read. And yeah, my shelves were lining up with all these deep spiritual based books at the age of
Wow.
15. My
Wow.
older brother was very deeply spiritual. We would spend hours just chatting about the meaning of life and different philosophies and different practices. And then he gave me my first pack of tarot cards. He's like, I think these will suit you. I think they'll fit in with everything that you're learning. And that was 25 years ago. I haven't put them down as a tool for myself. I went in and started reading professionally for other people. So I was like, these are amazing. These are life changing. These can tell you everything you want to know about yourself. And they really are. I think out of all the tools in my toolbox, tarot is probably my favorite one because they
Hmm.
just it's like this beautiful roadmap to doing life. You know, each card can explain different human experiences, different types of personalities, different archetypes. You know, anything you can think about that you can come through in life, tarot has a card that will explain it to you. It'll explain what you're going through and why you're going through it and how you can navigate through it. So you've got a pack of 78 cards that you just wander around with, and they're like, cool, this is how you navigate this, and this is what this, yes, let's do this. So that's pretty much where I started, just being an absolutely super curious teenager, and having my brother as my first spiritual mentor was just absolutely such a beautiful mentor to have because he was just as open-minded and curious as I was. And as I learned, I would teach him, and as he would learn, he would teach me. It was beautiful. And like I say, 25 years, it's the one tool I haven't put down.
Wow. Okay. That sounds really nice, and that sounds like a lot of fun as a teenager to
Oh,
be
yeah.
diving into this with somebody else as well. Because I can relate to diving into some of these things, but I didn't have anybody else. It was just me. So I had to kind of
Yeah.
figure out and stumble on my own. I did have the internet though, um, and I did have like started talking to people on online communities and things like that. So that's how I kind of substituted it. Um, yeah, so very, very, very interesting stuff. You said that it's been the biggest tool that you've never put down, most helpful tool. Can you give some examples of like a time when it helped you the most, where you were like kind of, for example, I don't know, figuring out, I don't know if I should do this or if I should do that, if it helped you in a big decision or if it helped you with overcoming like a mental health struggle or a career struggle?
Uh, all of the above.
Yeah, but like a specific example that you remember, like, oh, this was a big moment from in my life.
I would say, oh, there's so many to pick from. So before I met my husband, I was in a long-term relationship. I was with him for about 10 years. Wasn't the healthiest relationship, and I just felt so stuck. And like I couldn't go anywhere. Like what was outside of this? You know, when you're with someone for that long, you kind of lose your sense of self. You lose your sense of who you are. I'd also started the relationship in my early 20s. You know, in your early 20s, you're still figuring that stuff out. So in my gut, I knew the relationship wasn't right. My whole being was saying like, you need to get out of this. You need to move. And I was like, yeah, but how? Like, how do I do that? How do I do what is life outside of this? I'm terrified. Um, and so I pulled myself 7 cards, and in those cards, it was almost like this timeline that laid itself out that said, like, here is you at the moment, which was in tarot we have the Two of Swords, which is a fear card. It indicates that you're in a space of fear, but you're also making you're being bound by those fears. Those fears are holding you in place. So I was like, okay, so I'm not stuck here because I don't have anywhere to go. I'm stuck because I'm scared. I'm like, okay, that makes a whole lot of sense. All right. And they were like, you need to move past this fear, because the card next to that was the death card. And of course, everyone's terrified of the death card because they think, okay, I'm going to die. Like, no one's dying. The relationship's going to die, and the relationship has to die. Like, this part of your life, this part of who you are, there has to be death here. So you need to stop being scared, let everything die off that needs to die off, because the next run of cards, which are some of the most beautiful cards you can get from the tarot, the Sun card, the Star card, the Chariot card, those are all very forward moving progressive cards. There are also in tarot you have major arcana cards and you have minor arcana cards. Your major arcana, that's big stuff in life. Those are the big changes. You move to another country, you get married, you make huge decisions. Life, that's major arcana stuff. And then you have minor arcana cards, and every card barring that two of swords was all major arcana cards. So they were like, hey, you're going to have a huge big change coming in. It's going to be but it's going to be so worthwhile doing. So stop fiddling around in the minor arcana card here, stop being scared, and move into this progression. And I trusted it and I followed it because tarot is an intuitive tool. It's not the card saying, oh, this is what you should do. It's me on the intuitive level connecting with my inner self and having that conversation through the card and seeing, okay, this is what my inner self is actually saying. So that was my gut saying, stop being scared, let this die off, and move on to all the stuff that has the potential to be there. So I think that was probably one of the biggest helps in life, was that reassurance from my inner self through the cards saying, like, hey, you'll be okay. It's okay to let go. And no regrets. Absolutely no regrets. I mean, life just 360'd for me. I left my home country for the first time. I traveled to Southeast Asia. I got to experience a whole new culture. I made brand new friends. And I was like, why didn't I do this sooner? Why was I stuck on the Two of Swords? Like, what were you doing with your life? So sometimes just having that almost like an outside perspective, as much as it's an internal conversation, it's an outside perspective that says, hey, here's other options for you, here's other potentials for your life. And at multiple times throughout my 25 years of working with them, they've done that for me. It's a beautiful tool in that way.
Mm, okay, nice. So then you moved to Southeast Asia, and did you travel around a bunch, or did you just settle down in one of the places? How was your experience
So
with Southeast Asia?
So when I first went, I went to Vietnam to attempt to teach English. I was a horrible English teacher. I suck at teaching English. Like, when you teach you spiritual philosophies and spiritual tools, like, that's way up my alley. So yeah, I realized in my first month I'm a terrible English teacher. Let's stop doing that. And I spent about 3 months there. I spent a good portion of it in Hanoi, and then I went to Da Nang for a bit. Fell in love. And then decided I want to go back to South Africa for a couple of months and just reassess my life again, because I hadn't quite figured everything out, hadn't quite figured myself out. And 6 months back in my home country, regrounding myself, reassessing, I was like, okay, I'm ready for round two. Let's go back to Vietnam. And I spent a good year and a bit living in Hanoi. I opened a tarot cafe. I worked with
Wow.
so many different people, so many different cultures. It was probably one of the most beautiful experiences that I've had. Hanoi is just this hub of, you've got all the expat community, you've got the local community. So I was working with all these different people, and it was just absolutely amazing. And to be able to create a space where people can actually come and interact with other spiritual people and deep thinkers and have those conversations, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. That's where I met my husband. He ran the cafe with me. Um, and then we decided that marriage was on the cards and we need to think a little bit more long term. So he then proposed. We went back to South Africa, did my immigration process, and that's how I landed up living in the southeast of America, where I'm at now.
Okay, wow. So you've lived on three continents quite substantially as well at this point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Three very diverse continents.
Yeah, yeah. All right, that's amazing. I love Southeast Asia. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
in Da Nang, so I can definitely relate to falling in love in this with this place. It's really amazing, and it's one of my favorites. It's Da Nang and Chiang Mai in Thailand.
yeah.
Also
I've
an
heard
amazing
Chiang Mai
place.
is beautiful. Yeah,
Oh
haven't been to
my
Chiang Mai
God.
yet.
Absolutely amazing. Definitely you're gonna love it as well. It's similar vibes to Da Nang, but it's not the beach, it's more the mountains. But it's like
Okay.
spiritual communities, lots of events. Also like a nice mix of expats and local people and um yeah, just like the cultures and the people who are living in Southeast Asia are just so kind and so welcoming and so I always heard about this like oh my God, like the people in Southeast Asia are so friendly and they are so friendly. I'm from the Czech Republic where people are not friendly, especially towards strangers, like not friendly, right? And then I moved to the Netherlands where people always say that people in the Netherlands are also not friendly. But I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. People are so friendly here compared to the Czech people, right? So it
Yeah,
was a step up. And then I kept hearing like people here are so friendly, people here are so friendly, people in Southeast Asia. I'm like, how much friendlier can people get, and then
yeah,
I moved here for the first time. I was like, wow, okay, I get it now, like, but you really have to, like, it's not, you don't get it until you come and experience it and you live through it. You're like, whoa, this is insane, this is next level. So yeah, definitely um fell in love with the culture and the people and the location as well. It's really awesome. I
oh
was just
yeah.
just before this podcast, I was on a 90-minute run up and down the beach.
Oh,
Um,
I miss.
so yeah, it's really nice, and yeah, we have a lots of amazing events, and the culture here is really great. And the way I got here has been like a quite a journey as well. So I'm 24 now, and I've
Mm-hmm.
been to about 22 countries at this point, also on three
That's
continents. Of course, I didn't have that much time to live on all of these. I lived in Southeast Asia quite a bunch, and obviously, I lived in Europe, and I only visited North America for a couple months. I lived there for
mm-hmm.
like a couple months, 3 months in the US and 2 months in Mexico so far, and
Okay.
had an amazing time in both of these places. And the reason why, well, since I was like 18, 19, I wanted to become a digital nomad, and I was like, okay, I want to start a business. And I was kind of trying to figure out, okay, what do I do, and things like that. And because I had a history of overcoming my own social anxiety, and kind of from the Czech Republic, my parents said, unlike your family, where your family was so open-minded and do all this, my family is very like close-minded, like very close-minded, right?
Got
And
you.
towards basically all spirituality or all energy or anything, even entrepreneurship itself. And their attitude to mental health was, it's not real, just get over it, don't be a little bitch, basically, you know.
Yeah.
And so I had to go out and figure out things by myself. I literally googled how to be happy, and that's how I got introduced into this world of personal development. And I just became obsessed when I was 13, right? And I didn't have anybody else around me, but I was just diving into it kind of by myself. And then first it was articles and videos, and then was some books and things like that. And because of this work on myself, and mostly just kind of traditional personal development, changing my habits and changing my mindset, and it's starting a morning routine, and doing all of these kind of basic things, practicing gratitude, right? It wasn't really
Mm-hmm.
spirituality for me at the beginning at all. I completely turned my life around, and I was like, well, I have to share this thing. I have to share this stuff with other people, because like I see so many other people struggling, and
Mm-hmm.
like I used to struggle, and I was so ashamed of it, and then I was so ashamed about learning about this. Like I would read articles and watch videos about how to talk to girls and how to talk to people, like how to have a normal conversation, right? And it seemed like everybody else already knew all of that stuff, like, and so I was so ashamed. And then on the other side, I'm like, people don't know, like, and it's so sad that we don't have this kind of education. So I became
Mm-hmm.
very, very enthusiastic about sharing this as well. And
I
then
love that.
I started moving around a little bit, and I kind of had this. I developed this global mindset early on
Yeah.
because of the internet. And again, like my country, especially my small town in the Czech Republic, is like very strict and almost not almost, but quite racist, especially back in the days towards um, gypsies and Muslim people. These two
Mm-hmm.
are like very hated. And I remember when I was around 15 years old, I started doing video calls with people from other places around the world. And
Mm-hmm.
I had a video call with this really amazing Muslim girl from Morocco. I believe she was from Morocco, and she moved to Bulgaria. And she was this like most loving, amazing, understanding, like open person. I've one of the best I've ever met. And so that was like my country and my culture has it all wrong. Like, what the hell are they on about? Like, these people are so much nicer than us, you know? And so that's how I kind of developed this globalistic, inclusive mindset since a young age, even growing up in a racist environment. And I'm very grateful for that, because the technology kind of provided that for me. And then I started getting these opportunities to like have an internship in another country, and then have a summer job in another country, and then have a normal job in another country after I dropped out of school. And so I started moving around a bunch. I moved out when I was 20 for the like completely last time, and then since then I've been kind of all over the world. Quit my job in April 2022 to do my business full time, and been full time coaching people on social anxiety, and a little bit of business coaching as well these days. Um, Full time since then, and it's been a wild journey overall. Ups and downs and left and right and this and that. And yeah, like when I moved to Southeast Asia first time, I had a blast. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's so insightful to hear about where you've grown up and how you've grown up and how you're just like, no, none of this is for me. This doesn't work for me. I need to go and find something better for myself. And I think for someone to do that at such a young age is just, I think that's admirable. Yeah, I wish
thank you.
I'd done that at 20. At 20, I was sucked into the corporate world and
Yeah,
finding myself in an unhealthy relationship. I think that's amazing. Like
thank you.
that's real life value to give to people. It's like, hey, I've done this, and I've done it at a young age. It's like this doesn't work for me. I'm gonna go find what does. Yeah,
Yeah,
and the world needs to be more like that. We don't need to follow the status quo and well, life is living like this. No, life is expensive. And that you have that global mindset and a willingness to know and understand other people and their stories. If more people were like that, I think we would be a far more peaceful culture. I think we'd have a far more peaceful culture if there was more willingness to just sit down and listen and be like, hey, let me understand your story. Let me understand your culture and hear what you're all about. Those things are
yeah.
important. I think your story is amazing. Yeah,
Thank you.
respect. I think it's incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, I've definitely learned, and I teach this to other people as well, to replace judgments with curiosity.
Yes,
And
yes,
I've
I
noticed
agree.
in growing up in that environment, it was always judgmental. And that was one of the big reasons why I also grew up like to have pretty bad social anxiety, and was afraid of people, and thought that everybody was evil, and that everybody was
Mm,
just like out to get other people or like judge other people, because a lot of them were. But I thought that it's all of the world. Now throughout I've discovered that actually most of the world is very friendly, and most people are like very nice, very friendly, very kind, especially if you are kind first, right? And if you
that's
kind of look for that, you will see more kindness, and it's really fascinating. One of my friends, this is like a a wild thing that he does when we travel together and when we kind of go hang out. He loves talking to strangers. He has a similar story, dealt with very bad social anxiety, getting bullied and things like that. And nowadays he just like goes to public, like in like say on a square, and he just starts yelling, especially when we are traveling, right? When we're walking, I went with to many countries with him and things like that. But he just starts yelling, "Oh my God, I love this! People are so nice here," and people kind of start turning around, and then he just starts talking to somebody, like starts a casual conversation in public, and people are so nice, and
Yeah.
it's because he like yells it out, so he kind of programs their brain in like a subtle way of like the expectation is that everybody's gonna be nice, and they already heard, oh, everybody's so nice here, so I guess I'm just gonna be nice to this guy, and it works so well. Like everybody is so nice that way. Like every time I've seen him do it, it's like the people that we've met were like some of the friendliest people. Even without doing it, people are very friendly. But it's just like a little fun, little extra fun thing to do. And we've done all sorts of crazy things with strangers and um,
That's awesome.
joined road trips to other countries with strangers and things like that. And so it's been a wild journey, like being on one side of social
Mhm.
anxiety and depression and being like, oh my God, the world is evil and everybody's out to get me. I need to like be shy and protect myself, always on edge, like turning around if anybody's chasing me by any chance, to now just like walking around public, talking to everybody and just being like finding friendly people everywhere. It's a totally different experience. And I started finding these friendly people even in still in my town, right before I started traveling. So it wasn't like because of all of my town or all of my culture is just that way. It was just kind of mostly in my brain, right? It was just mostly in my
Yes.
brain.
Perception.
I want to talk a little bit more about your transition from being in the corporate world to starting to do your own thing. How was that transition? What sparked you to kind of leave the corporate world and do your own thing, and how was it?
So I worked in different corporate industries. I've had multiple different types of corporate jobs. You name it, I've probably tried it. And I think I was just looking for some sort of sense of fulfillment. And all I found in the corporate industry was just my soul being sucked out of my body, really, at the end of the day. Like, no matter what job I tried or what company I worked for, I was just like, this is just depressing. Like, this just makes me unhappy. And just skyrocketed my anxiety. And also back then, I mean, I was young. Straight out of high school, I went straight into working my first corporate job, and I didn't have the tools that I have today. If I had the tools I had today, I may have managed it a whole lot better. I think I still would have left anyway because it's just soul crushing work, a lot of it. Um, and I think that there was just I wasn't providing any value here. I'm just here in these mindless jobs, earning a living to pay for my bills, and what kind of a life is that? What am I doing to myself?
Mm,
Um, and my very last boss that I had, she was probably the worst boss that I've ever had. And in all honesty, I'm grateful that she was the worst boss that I have because she pushed me to be like, bugger all of this. This is not for me anymore. I have to go and do my own thing. I have to go and have a purpose in life where I am actually offering something of value to the world, that I'm not just, flinging nonsense around in the hopes that I can, keep paying my bills each month. So yeah, my last boss was a nightmare to work for. And I'm grateful for it. I'm glad that she was, because it
mm,
was that kick out the nest that I really needed to go full time into what I was doing, because I was reading tarot on the side as like a side thing. And anytime that I would read for other people, I had that sense of fulfillment. I had that sense of purpose. I was like, I love this. But I was always too scared to take that leap and just go into it full time. So I was like, this can't sustain me. That's impossible. And yeah, one really bad boss was just enough of a push over the cliff to be like, I'm going to take that risk. And I no regrets, absolutely no regrets. It served me so beautifully for so many years, until I moved here, and the universe is like, cool, you need to change it again. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over. So yeah, the corporate was I've learned a lot working in corporate. I have huge gratitude for the different jobs and positions I've worked in because from a business perspective, I understand business. I learned sales and marketing. I learned how to do bookkeeping. I learned how to run an office, how to manage staff. So I got to learn all the business tools, which is fantastic for now running my own business. So running my own business was there was less that I had to learn. There was still a whole lot that I had to learn, but there was less refining that I needed to do. So I was like, let me take all of these skills and this knowledge and let me do something for myself that's going to have an actual impact on the world, where I'm not just selling whatever or answering phones or, doing something with my life. Yeah, that's what that transition looked like. Yeah, it was just like a
Mm,
nope, with this, we need to do something better.
mm. And so the first day after you, the first day that you remember after you became like a full-time business owner, full-time entrepreneur, how was that like?
Freeing. It was liberating. It was like this huge weight off my shoulders. I mean, the days leading up to me quitting my job, I was so stressed. I was so anxious. I had a constant pit in my stomach of like, oh, I don't know where this is gonna go. Like, I wanted to be sick. Like, it just felt awful. And then when I stood in front of her, and I was like, I don't want to work for you anymore. I want to go and do something else for myself. And she didn't take it very well. She was very offended at the fact that I didn't want to work for her. And I
Wow.
walked out of her office and I was like, wow, I actually feel lighter. I actually feel a whole lot better. Like, what was I all stressed and anxious for? And the days and weeks after that, it was almost like life just switched around for me. And I was like, wow, why didn't I do this for myself sooner? Why did I have to push myself in the corporate world for so long? I wish I'd done it sooner, is probably the only thing that I would change about it. But we
Mm,
always do everything in the right amount of time. There were things that I had to learn at that last job. I needed that last push. Um, so there's a little bit of a wish I'd done it sooner, but also I'm not unhappy with the journey.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's so fascinating to me because it's a big contrast to me in my last job. And actually all of my jobs. Like I had only one time that I had like a really bad boss, and that was
Mm-hmm.
kind of like in the corporate world. Like it was I used to study programming and automation and robotics, and so I had like a programming internship, and that boss was basic very awful, and he like I felt like he tried to manipulate me and lied to me and things like that, and I was like, this is, oh, I don't like this. But then
Yeah.
I started working in like physical jobs while I was building my business on the side. So I was like loading trucks, and then later I moved to the Netherlands to be a baggage handler, right? And that was my last full-time job. And then I got a like a part-time job as a personal assistant to this Dutch entrepreneur, which is like a wild story of how we met and whatnot. Basically, we a food got delivered to our house when we were working living in the Netherlands, working at the airport, and it was like this person doesn't live here. So my friend just opened and started eating the food, and then the guy showed up like, "Oh my God, you're eating my chicken," and then he ended up like a couple months later giving me a job, which is ridiculous. I was like, this country is amazing. Like you eat somebody's food here, and they give you a job for it. This is insane. Anyways, and he was great. Like I have this camera, and after I quit my job and I was like, I'm going to be traveling to Southeast Asia and doing my business only. And he was like, oh wow, that's amazing. Okay, wait. And he like went into the back of his like warehouse and stuff. And he like dug out the camera. He's like, here, you're gonna need a camera to like make videos of it there. I'm like,
Awesome.
so
I love
he was an awesome boss. And then the bosses that I had at the airport, they were really chill. They were really cool. One of them started calling me Mr. Happiness because I would read the book The Power of Now. I had it always with me, and I was like walking around, skipping around, like practicing my meditations, and looking forward to traveling the world and doing all that. But the day when I quit my job, it was like, oh, like I spent 2.5 years grinding my ass, like 80-hour weeks, almost 100-hour weeks, and this is it. Like I don't feel anything special. Like it was literally like that. I remember I just took the train. And in order to celebrate, I took the train from the airport. to the beach, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna hang out on the beach, and I'm gonna be excited about my new my new life. Like I don't have to go back to a job anymore. This is insane. And I was kind
Yeah.
of like, is this it? Like, what do I do with this? And it started kicking in like a little bit later on because I was like, oh, like I really don't have to go back to a job anymore. So it was more of a slow burn for me back then.
Yeah.
But I remember that day what I
Okay.
did in order to like celebrate it a bit and like amplify the emotions. I went to a store and I bought 10, 10 like small waters and 10
Mm-hmm.
fruit salads with just fruit cut like mixed fruit cut up in it. And I went around the beach giving it away and just like, hey guys, like, do you want some fruits? Do you want some water? And people are like, oh, what? No. uh, and then I spent maybe like half an hour or an hour to give up like to give away like 10 fruit salads because people were saying no, is it poison or whatever. People are funny that way. And so I finally gave them all away, and people are like, "Why are you doing this?" I'll just quit my job. I'm gonna be traveling the world. Ah. So that helps, like kind of celebrating with other people and um, doing that helped a lot. So that was kind of my experience of quitting my job the first 24 hours, and then the next day I was like, okay, well, what am I gonna do? Well, I have so much time. I want to do this and this for my business, but yeah, I don't have I have time, I can do that in the afternoon, I can hang out, and then it became a huge problem for me. I went from the most disciplined guy to work at the company to like struggling with discipline and doing my habits because I
Yeah.
was my own boss. I had all the time in the world, and then obviously the business didn't grow as fast as I wanted to, and then it created a lot of other issues. But I didn't expect that change from being an employee to being a full-time entrepreneur of like it's only up to me
Yeah.
and I'm fucking it up.
Yes.
And then obviously I
You're
kind
the
of figured it out, and I got myself into it, but it was a big change and I didn't really expect it. And yeah, I've met other people who had the same experience of wow, like this is harder than I thought of like me doing the work. It was so easy to work on my business before, but now when it's the only thing I do, it was like wow, why is this so hard? And then I had to
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of work on that, and I do pretty well these days. After 2.5, almost 3 years of doing this full time, you adopt and adjust. But yeah, that's been kind of my journey of transitioning and quitting that and going into that.
I definitely get that. I think a lot of people don't realize that the motivation and the discipline as an employee is vastly different to the motivation and discipline you need as a business owner. They're two completely different things. You can't That's one tool you can't take from working for someone else and bring into your own business. It's entirely different because there's no boss standing over you saying like, "Hey, it's 8 o'clock. You need to get out of bed, otherwise you're gonna get fired." It's like you're just like, I'm gonna lie in bed until 9 because I am the boss. It's like,
Yeah,
well, you need to kick your own ass, really.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's
yeah.
very different.
It's definitely much harder than I expected. Especially because like I had shifts that started at 4:30 a.m. in the morning at the airport, and I would be up at like 2:30 a.m. to go for my run and do my meditation and do my whole morning routine, and then jump on a bike to get to the airport. And I was like 4:30, 4:20. I was like early for the shift, right? And then I was like, well, I'm gonna wake up at 5, not at 2, and I'm gonna do my morning routine. I'm gonna start work at 7, and then it would be like, nah, I'm gonna sleep in, and I'm like, what's happening? What's happened to me? Um, yeah, it is definitely an experience, and this is why I like to ask, what is it like to be you in the beginning, to kind of introduce the more human side, because our business, entrepreneurship, digital nomad, all of these kind of buzzwords um, are so glorified these days. And it seems
Mm-hmm.
like it's this dream life where you have no problems, everything just flows easily. But it's still
Not
life.
really.
It's not like that at all. It's just still kind of normal life. We still have problems. We still deal with things, right? And it's not like I wake up in bliss all day just because I travel the world. It's like it just becomes life. And I had this guy. couple of months ago at this point on the show, and I asked him the question, and he was like, well, from the outside, it seems like I have the best life ever. Like, I fly on the private jets, and I do this, and my clients like send private jets for me to pick me up, and I go over to their mansion, and I coach them, and this and that. I'm like, oh damn! Oh, he's like, I work with A-list celebrities in Hollywood. I'm like, oh damn! How are you speaking to me on this podcast, you kind of thing? Um, because I just started like a few weeks ago when I talked to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he later on told me why he wanted to talk to me as well. But and so he said from the outside is like this luxury life that everybody wants. That they think this is the easiest, like super amazing life. And he's like from the inside. Well, first of all, it's kind of stressful, and I have to use a lot of my own tools to manage the stress and bring in balance. And also, um, it's just life. I wake
Yeah.
up, I do my little thing, and I just go on my meeting, and I do a podcast, and I hop on a jet, and I go to the client, and I come back, and I do this, and it's just became normal life. I'm like,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense, right? And so we always have to. It doesn't matter what life you have, if you're not living, if you're not practicing gratitude for what you have and for what you're experiencing, like it's not, it doesn't matter. It will just be like, ugh, fuck this, oh, I have to go on this jet to fly to this mansion, fucking
Yeah.
go to the client. And your brain will start to complain about this thing that you've been dreaming about for so long. It's so weird, so wild. So it's like
Yeah.
you have to practice it, right? And it was the same experience for me, not at the level of private jets yet, but traveling the world, right? I was, oh my god, like I can go live anywhere in the world. I can go to Southeast Asia. I can go to Mexico. I can do this. I can do that. And then it becomes, oh, visas running out. Oh, I have to go on the plane. I have to do this. It's like,
Yeah.
whoa, whoa, whoa,
Nomadic
whoa.
life is
Hold on,
hard.
pause. Pause, pause. Whoa, 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 pause. I get to fly around the world. This is amazing. I'm
Yeah.
my own boss. And so you there have to be really conscious of it. Um, and if you can't do it, if you have like let's say a hard life, or if you're in corporate, or if you're just still kind of struggling to go towards your dreams, and you can't
Mm.
get your brain to be grateful for that, what makes you think that you're going to be just automatically just like, oh, everything's, and I wake up in bliss because I just achieved my thing? It's really not like that. And I think it's important to mention it, because it's still worth it to go and do this. I mean, I wouldn't go back to working at the airport, come on. um
That's yeah, people glamorize those lifestyles. They're like, "Oh, you're living your best life." I'm like, "Man, it's hard out there." It's still normal life. It's just normal life in a different country, living in a different way.
yeah,
But you still get up and have to do normal life in a sense. It's just doing it differently. Yeah,
yeah,
and I think the people get stuck in the glamorized aspect of it. I see it a lot in the spiritual industry that I work in. People glamorize my industry a lot. They're like, "Oh, I want to be a TikTok tarot reader." I'm like, "No, go away, go stay outside of my industry. You don't belong here. Like the work is hard, and people don't see the other side to being a digital nomad, to living in a different country, to working for yourself. People are just like, "Oh, you're living your best life." It's like, no, life is hard some days. Life's really hard. That
yeah.
you still have reality. Yeah, and if we can, I think if we can remove that glamorization and make it more real, um, I think more people would be able to navigate it better, coming with that sense of gratitude, where you've got to be grateful for no matter where you are in life, whether like you're working in an airport or you're living as a digital nomad, that gratitude aspect is so important. Because like you say, if you don't have gratitude for where you are now, when you do get to where you want to be, how are you going to be grateful when you get there? You haven't practiced that yet.
Not
Yeah.
long.
Tool in the toolbox. Yeah.
Yeah, it just goes away and just becomes like, oh, I have to do this now or this, and it really is all about the perspective. And I think also if we don't over glamorize it this way and we share more of the reality, I think more people also would like to actually live it. And not only that, but more people would be actually able to live it, because
Yes.
it's people, there's a lot of influencers and things like that where people make it seem so easy, and so that a lot of people want to start and try, but they
Yeah.
try for a couple months, and then well, this is not as easy as they said that it would be, and then they
Yes.
quit, and then they never would achieve it. Whereas life is better on the other side. It's still hard, right? But it is better. Again, like I would not go back. I wouldn't take any of the hard work back if I could.
Yeah.
I would not go back to the jobs that I had, because this is still so much better, and the freedom
Yes.
is absolutely amazing, and it's so worth it. But it's not just total blissful, dreamy, everyday wonderland life.
That's a, and I think a lot of people they're looking for that. They're looking for the quick fix. You know, if I quit my job and go be a digital nomad, it's gonna fix all my problems. Your problems are gonna travel with you. They're gonna pack themselves in your suitcase and they're just gonna wander around the world with you. You know, those don't go away. Your life doesn't go away. You know, and I
Yeah,
think for a lot of people, they're looking for that escape. You know, and that's why they look at these, influencers, and they're like, oh, that looks like the perfect life. They always look happy, or look at those sunsets they get to see. You know,
yeah,
but they don't get to see the rest of that person's day. You know, they could have had the worst day before they got to see that sunset.
yeah,
You know, there's that glamorization, I think, is something that does need to be taken away. It's like this bad filter, bad Instagram filter that just lies to the world. It's like, no, it's
yeah,
not like that. It's actually like
yeah,
this. But
yeah,
it is worth it. It's definitely worth it.
yeah, absolutely. All right, we're coming to the end of the hour here. It was a great conversation so far. I want to ask you this: why do you go on podcasts?
I love interacting with other people, that sharing of different experiences, and for me, podcasts, it's the conversation aspect. I got to hear about you and your story. I mean, you've inspired me. You've re-inspired me as a business owner. I'm like, okay, now I feel motivated to go and do my job today. I'm gonna go sit in front of my laptop and do what I need to. And that's the thing. Like meeting new people and hearing their experiences, and that mutual sharing of experiences is so important because storytelling we've been doing for thousands and thousands of years. That's how we passed on knowledge back in the day, was storytelling. And podcasts are the new age version of storytelling. We don't sit around the fire and tell the stories anymore. We sit behind our laptops and tell the stories, but we're still storytelling. And there's so much beauty and value in that. It's like I now know another person who has a really great story to share with the world. And there's things that you've taught me that I can now go and share with other people, because it's not always teaching from my personal experience. It's like, hey, I met this person and they shared this really beautiful thing with me. Let me share that with you. We teach from other people's experiences. So that would be the reason.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I love that. I love that because I think a lot of people tend to go on podcasts only for um selling something, which of
Mhm.
course is a big part of it, right? And obviously I'm here as well because I want to monetize this, and because I want to build business relationships and this and that, and create collaborations and
Mhm.
to expose ourselves to new potential clients and help people and do this, right? But also it's like you said, the networking, the creating more, exchanging value, changing exchanging stories, exchanging insights, inspiring each other again, re-inspiring each other. And I really love this format of just like this conversation style.
Yes.
Let it go, let it go. It's really awesome, and I love this show so far. I didn't expect that it's gonna be this way. I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna start going live, and invite people to have a conversation with me live, and it's kind of
Yes.
taking off like in a very nice way. And yeah, so I very much appreciate you coming on here, and I'm looking forward to staying in touch and seeing what you do. Do you create any of your own content, or do you have anything to offer to anybody who might be listening in?
So there's a self development coaching side which is available, and that's available online. And then for the past 3 years, I've been working on my yogic tarot system, which is a fusion of traditional tarot cards combined with yogic philosophy. So each card has a philosophy attached, and an actual pose that you practice to get the physical aspect of that card. So I've been developing that system for the last 3 years, which the system's now built. And a lot of the content creation is based around that. So teaching people my system, which is done through my YouTube channel and the Yogic Tarot website, which I'm looking to get that published hopefully next year. Depending on how the my editing goes, I'm working with an editor back home in South Africa. I mean, the guidebook is huge. It's 580 odd pages of guidebook. Yeah, it's massive. It's
Wow.
two big systems put together, so it's a lot of detail. And so yeah, I'm slowly making my way through we're on the second draft of the guidebook, and yeah, getting my system out there to see, like, does it work? Is it helping people? And so far so good. The system's been really well received. So yeah, those are my two big things at the moment. You know, learn my yogic tarot system. It's a beautiful combination of the tools that I use in my self development, and then there's the coaching aspect as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. As of right now, what would be like the one place or the main place for people to go if they want to learn more about what you do and connect with you?
That would be my website, tamdillon.com.
Amazing. All right. Do you have any closing statements or something to leave people with?
Man, I'm gonna springboard off of your gratitude lesson. Like, be more grateful for the life that you have, and if you're not happy with the life that you have, change what's making you unhappy, and then practice that gratitude on a daily basis. Yeah, I think out of the conversation, that would be the most profound thing, is that gratitude. We've got to remind ourselves of that. It really does
Yeah.
go a long way. Mm.
All right. Amazing. Yeah, thanks for the reiteration as well. I think a lot of people get stuck into the after I do this, I'll be happy. After I get this, I'll be happy. After I achieve this, I'll be happy. Or after I have my own business, I'll be happy after I this. But then, yeah, it always becomes the next thing and then the next thing and then the next thing. And then what's the point of any of it if you're not enjoying any of it, right? So it's,
That's it.
it's this
Enjoy
these
the journey.
cliche quotes, enjoying the journey and things like that. And people kind of like, oh, it's a cliche. I'm like, it's a cliche for a reason, you know?
Yeah,
It's
it's
important.
there for a reason. There's
All
truth
right.
to it.
Yeah. Anyway, so this has been a really lovely conversation, really awesome connecting with you. You have really wonderful energy. So I definitely do hope that we stay in touch. And yeah, this is the end of the live. So thanks for listening in, if anybody was listening in, and bye everybody.